Simply put, economics is the study of scarcity. Those were the first words I heard in my very first Economics 101 class almost 25 years ago in college. Not much has changed over the years. Economics isn't a study of money or math, it's a study of human behavior that permeates every facet of life and every choice we make. The study of scarcity is made to understand how we allocate limited resources. In the business world, economics and finance are at the very heart of the products that we buy and, well, even the ones we don't. For even the biggest kids on the block like Disney, economics is at the very center of every decision made. But that doesn't mean necessarily that every decision is the right one. The goal of any business is to supply a product or service that their target consumers demand. And when that demand meets the supply, a clever thing happens. It's called price. Now, a lot has been made over Disney raising prices in their bread and butter theme parks that are the business and brand envy of all their competitors. Why? Because Disney has something that most others don't, and that is a very healthy dose of price elasticity. Now, I want to discuss all these concepts today as they relate to Disney, specifically the parks and recent price increases, to try to give folks a better glimpse into why Disney does what it does sometimes. Because for all the talk about raising prices at Disney parks, and some folks understandably not being happy about it, it seems to be working. Here we go. Renegade Online. Well, welcome back, folks. Another great day here at Valiant Renegade. Good to see everybody out there. And boy, we just keep growing. 4,200 subs. We've had 3,000 at the beginning of the year. We're up 1,200 since then. So thank you all. Apparently, people are really enjoying this content. And I'm going to ask, if you're one of the 60 or 70% of the folks watching one of these videos like this for the first time and you haven't yet subscribed, please, if you're enjoying the content, make sure you hit that subscription button, hit that notification bell, share this sucker out on the social medias, and do leave a comment before you check out today. We always love to get feedback from folks on what we talk about, do our best to answer or respond to as many of those comments as we possibly can. Of course, these days we're getting a lot more of them than we were just a few months ago, so it's getting a little bit more difficult, but be patient. We do the best we can. So let's get into this. I want to talk about this because, as I set up in the intro, yes, we're going to go back to school a little bit here. We're going to talk about basic economics, finance and economics is something that was, because I was insane, I studied in college both those subjects. That's what I majored in. That was fun for me, as crazy as I am. I'm sorry. So I'm going to do my best to try to impart some of that information, some of that knowledge to you so that you can understand why a company like Disney does the things that it does. Even though we get upset about it, things like price increases and whatnot, they're not doing it in a vacuum. They're not doing it blindly. They're not doing it just to do it, to see, let's squeeze some more money. They know what they're doing. They have internal numbers and metrics that they go by to determine what they can do. And all of that relates to a concept that we introduced in the introduction of this video, price elasticity. So we're going to talk about what that means, try to illustrate some of that, and so you can understand Disney's thinking, so that when you see these changes happen with companies, not just like Disney, but throw in there Six Flags or Universal Studios or any of those kind of theme parks, really anything out there in life. Anytime you walk into a store and buy a product or a service, there is an amount of price elasticity. There's an element of supply and demand that dictates the price of that product. So let's talk about this. This is an article from the New York Post just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, January 18th, 2022. And we have another article coming up from thatparkplace.com with WDW Pro that ties into this, and I'm going to talk about that as we kind of had it up on the screen in the intro. But here we go. Disney slammed for price hikes at theme parks and longer wait times. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are unhappy right now, but not everybody. Remember, anything when you see on social media, people sometimes tend to have the false impression that a couple of comments represents the largesse of people that are engaged in an activity, or in this case, buying a product or a service from Disney. That's not always the case. So Reddit and Twitter They don't represent everybody out there in real life, obviously. They're just the most vocal ones, and obviously negativity tends to be more vocal than positivity. But let's talk about this, because I do understand the frustrations out there of certain folks that want to go to these kind of parks, but sometimes now the prices are getting to the point to where they really can't afford to do it as easily as they were a few years ago. So let's talk about this. The most magical place on Earth is being rebranded as the most expensive place on Earth by angry customers who slammed Disney for price hikes at its DisneyWorld and Disneyland theme parks. Disney customers took to Reddit over the past week to rip the Mouse House's theme parks over higher admission fees as well as subpar experiences that include more expensive, lackluster food and staffing shortages. Quote from one of the Redditors: "If you're the kind of person that budgets or saves for vacations, Disney parks aren't for you any longer," wrote one angry customer, saying the company had ditched everyday people for the well-to-do. That's a premium physical experience, and there's plenty of national and international wealthy families to afford going indefinitely. Full stop right there. Exactly. And that's the point. That's the point. Now, in the intro, we talked about scarcity. Economics is the study of scarcity, which means in economics, or what scarcity is as far as economics is concerned, is the study of the allocation of limited resources. Now, when you think about Disney, you think limited resources doesn't really enter your vocabulary. It doesn't really pass your train of thought. But yes, Disney, as a matter of fact, especially when it comes to the theme parks, has a high level of scarcity, does it not? Theme park is a physical area, and that physical area can only accommodate a set limited number of guests each and every day. They can't simply produce more supply of the theme park. They can't say, well, 10,000 people have filled the parks today, but we have 2,000 more that would like to have gotten in, so let's just let them in. No, they can't. The limitation of the supply of that theme park is, say, 10,000. And I don't know if it's 10,000. I'm simply using that as a simple, nice round number to make an example of how this works. But that's what it is. And if Disney looks at this and says, well, if we raise prices, and we might have, of the 20,000 people that want to come to Disney today, 5,000 of them might decide they can't afford it anymore. But we're still at capacity because we can only let 10,000 in. It doesn't matter that we lost those 5 because we're still filling the parks. That's what they're doing. And obviously, to me, it's working. We have some other articles that will talk about that. And we'll get to more on that WDW Pro article because that's important going to the future, because that article is going to discuss how Disney is going to try to increase the amount of supply to better serve the demand. The demand for getting into a Disney theme park overall, and I know this is not every single day, but overall the demand for Disney exceeds currently the supply that they can offer, which means necessarily that prices will go up. That's how it works. If the demand for Disney was dropping and the supply was staying the same or increasing, then the price would be coming down. Good example, as we talked in a previous video, is the Galactic Star Cruiser. We'll go back to that in just a moment. Disney has been hit hard from the pandemic, and this is back to the New York Post article, and has been increasing prices in order to make up for the loss of business. And yes, I have talked about this before. We talked about this on that Galactic Star Cruiser video, did we not? Disney is a company that, because of the events of the last 18 months to 2 years, they have been starved, like almost all other businesses have been out there, for cash flow. They've had to shut down completely. Remember, the Disney theme parks are the bread and butter, the financial bread and butter of that Disney business. Yes, they are trying to build up things like streaming services, Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, so on and so forth. And those are all great. But Disney Plus is still not a profitable enterprise yet. It's not scheduled to be profitable for Disney until another 2 years at the end of fiscal 2024, which for Disney is September 30th of 2024. They still have a ways to go, and they have a lot of money that they're about to shoot out, $13 billion or so, to create new content over the course of the next year. That's a lot of capital. It's got to come from somewhere. They're counting on the theme parks to re-bolster the company itself while they go through this transitory period of building their streaming service. So let's go back to this. According to Inside the Magic, Even prices for ice cream have been jacked up. Mickey's premium ice cream sandwich has gone from $5.69 to $5.99. So there you go, right there, about an 8% price increase. At Disney World Restaurant, they're talking about some of the price increases there that have gone up dramatically. Some of the merchandise has gone up. Don't need to go line by line for all this, but you get the point. Prices are going up. But like that first person said in the article that they quoted from Reddit, there's pretty much an infinite number of wealthy families out there, both domestically and internationally, that still have a strong demand to visit the Disney parks and are willing to pay these higher prices. And yes, I know it's distressing to some. There's families out there that work hard that don't make near as much money, but they would still love to enjoy Disney World. And a lot of them are frustrated at this point because the pricing of Disney World or Disneyland or Disney theme parks in various areas of the world are now being priced to a point where they're getting a little bit more out of reach to really get there. So a lot of families save up a lot of money. They work hard and it takes them maybe a year or two to save up to go to Disney. And I know that's tough, but understand that Disney's not trying to do that to just get rid of those people. They're doing it because at this point, the demand is dictating that they do so. Remember, Disney is still a for-profit company. Guys like Bob Chapek understand that. Now, the question are these price increases working? Because this isn't anything new. This is just more price increases in 2022. Disney has been raising their prices now for many years, and people keep showing up to the parks. And that's the bottom line. That is supply and demand. And as long as that demand continues, as long as that demand either increases or what have you, and the supply is fixed, price is going to keep going up. But let's get to that. Let's look at this real quick. Walt Disney World expansions are likely on the way. Again, this is from That Park Place, also from a couple of days ago on January 18th, excuse me. And I'm not going to go into all the details. I would encourage everybody out there to go check out thatparkplace.com, check out WDW Pro's articles on this, and you can find all the details of some of the additions that are going to get made in the parks, like the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios are two of the ones they're focused on. Again, to increase capacity. They want to increase capacity in those parks. It's a big sign right now telling you that if they felt that the demand for getting into Disney parks was waning as prices were going up, if they felt that people visiting the parks, the number of people each day was on a steady decline or was holding well below their historical averages, and of course factoring in some of the pandemic issue, lockdown times, capacity restrictions in different parks, those kind of things, but factoring all that in, if they felt like things were moving in the wrong direction, two things would be happening right now. Prices would be going down, not up. And they wouldn't be looking to expand the physical area of the parks to increase that capacity or to increase the supply to better meet the demand that they have out there to get into the parks. But they are doing this. They are expanding. And even as Pro says here, having spoken with and seen some information from people very familiar with the ongoings at the parks, it seems obvious to me that Disney has reached a point where their only way to increase profits at Walt Disney World is to grow. And he is correct. Of course, the other way that we're already seeing now is to increase prices. But this is what they want to increase that supply. They need to increase capacity. They're trying their darndest to get that off the ground at the Disneyland Resort at a massive expense. And of course, in Disneyland in Anaheim, it's very landlocked. There's nowhere to go. Disney World in Florida is much easier to expand. The Walt Disney Company owns a massive swath of land all around that park that is completely unused right now. They can easily expand in Florida. At a time when people simply don't have as much discretionary spending available, and Disney has nickel and dime their guests to the limit, there's only one way to keep up the good stockholder reports: expand. And yes, this is true. And yes, they are going to nickel and dime some of their guests to the limit. And that's the key, some. That is going to happen. There are going to be some people out there that are going to be frustrated with the price increases because it's become more than they can bear. And again, I know it happens. That's how it works. Let's look at something else just to kind of give people an understanding how people react when things change. Gas prices, right? Everybody understands gas prices. Couple of 2 or 3 years ago, down here in Louisiana, the average price for a gallon of gasoline for regular unleaded was about $2. Now it's about $3.15 where I am. So that goes to show you we've had a more than 50% price increase in gasoline just in the last couple of years. Guess what? Everybody's still in the car. Everybody's still driving. Everybody's still running around out there. Pretty much almost just as much. Now, What does that show you? That is what's called price elasticity. How much can that price stretch out? How much can that price increase? And people continue to pay for that product or service regardless of those price increases. That is elasticity. If something is inelastic, let's say that we had a $2 gallon of gas and gas suddenly went to $2.50, and all of a sudden people cut their driving habits in half, then that would show inelasticity, right? You can't stretch that rubber band as far before it breaks. Well, we have seen even with gasoline over the years where the price inelasticity has laid in the past. So think back about 10 years ago when a gallon of gasoline was about $4.50 a gallon where I am, even higher out in places like California. People's driving habits changed dramatically. Nobody was driving around. I say nobody, but most people, a lot of people that used to do summer vacations and road trips, those all got cut. That is the point of inelasticity with gasoline. We haven't found that yet with Disney. We're not there yet, because this is what I want to look at. Disney's magical pricing power can't outpace inflation right now. This was from November from CNBC. Just to kind of give you an idea, yes, the returns on Disney this past year were below the S&P index. However, of course, everybody's looking at streaming numbers. There's more going on at Disney than just streaming numbers. And people inside Disney like Chapek and the new chairman, Susan Arnold, they understand this. They're not too much worried about intermittent stock price fluctuations. They're focused on a long game here. But if we look here, at the same time in November, this is from the Disney food blog. Attendance and guest spending increased at Disney's theme parks in 2021. This talks about some of the news that came out of the fourth fiscal quarter report from September 30th from the Walt Disney Company. Basically, where Bob Chapek and Susan Arnold declared that, look, the guests that we have at the park, the per guest spending has increased 30% per capita, meaning for everybody walking in the park that used to come in and spend an average of $100 in a Disney theme park, these same people are coming into the parks today, now, and spending an average of $130 in the park. So they're increasing prices, but they still have a healthy supply of folks coming in and are more than happy to spend it. And this is why Disney is going to continue down this path. Again, here from Inside the Magic. How about another one for you? Massive crowds return to DisneyWorld. Parks hit capacity all week. And again, this was during Thanksgiving week. This is going to keep going and going and going. And as long as these numbers continue to happen, Disney World is going to continue to increase the prices because the demand is there to dictate it. It's economic scarcity in this case. Disney has a limited amount of capacity in these parks that they can offer. The demand still exceeds the amount of supply, which necessarily dictates the prices are going to go up. Because that's how business works. At the end of the day, yes, they are here to serve their customers. They're here to give their customers the best experience they possibly can, but they're also a business that is in business to make a profit, to make money. And just because they say they want to serve their customers, that doesn't mean that they can possibly serve in the manner that is desired by every individual out there. I mean, sure, I would love to be able to walk into a Disney park for $10, but that's not reality. That's just not how it is anymore. So changes will continue, but here's the thing I mentioned earlier about the Galactic Star Cruiser, and this is where sometimes things can go the other way. That particular hotel, a high demand going in, right? The Disney Star Cruiser was all booked up for 2 or 3 months until something changed, until something happened to the demand. Something depressed demand artificially outside of what it had been up to that point. And it was that marketing video. It was the YouTube video that we've all talked about here on YouTube that was very quickly pulled down. Disney didn't want anybody seeing that because they realized the economic impact that it was having on that resort. And the economic impact was it was taking the demand that was up here and bringing it down here. And people were asking for cancellations and refunds before the deadline. That is a good example of things not working. That is a good example of things going the other way for Disney. Unless and until that happens in a sufficient enough quantity in the parks as a whole, the prices aren't going to go down. The prices will probably keep going up. But Disney's going to try to increase capacity, as we've seen with their expansion plans. So that might stabilize prices, at least in the short term, once they get those built, because they can allow more people into the parks, generate more revenues per day. Because remember, it doesn't matter if the park has 1,000 people in it or 10,000 people in it on a given day. Disney still has the same expenses each and every day, regardless of who is in there. They still have to pay a staff. They still have to pay for maintenance on the buildings. They still have to pay for electricity and for water, for so on and so forth. These are all things that the bills keep coming due, regardless of how many people are in the parks. And after almost 2 years of having little to no one in the parks because of outside influences, you can see where this is going. In any case, good to see everybody out there today. I hope this was helpful, give you a little bit more understanding of how these kind of things work. Do leave a comment before you head out. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button, that notification bell. And until next time, take care, you guys.